The first principle was that challenges are an integral part of our growth. If we want to grow in anything in our life, we have to take and accept constructive challenges. The second principle that we spoke about yesterday are the three kinds of habits: good habits, neutral habits, and bad habits. Good habits, we should try and consciously enhance them. Neutral habits, we should utilize them. And bad habits, we want to deal with them, chuck them away, reduce them, minimize them, and slowly just take them out of our life because they are ruining our physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being and health. The third principle that we spoke about yesterday was three things. Number one, let us introspect how we have performed in the last 1 year in that area that we wanted to work upon ourselves. And if we haven't done very well, no problem, we have a chance again. Therefore, the second principle is identify that one bad habit that you want to work on as you enter into the new year. And I hope that yesterday through the day you have thought about what is that one habit that you really want to work upon. The third thing that we spoke about was make a resolve, a sankalpa. We will all make a resolve to stick it out for the next 21 days, and together as a community we will try to deal with that one bad habit for each of ourselves, whatever we decide. I'm really glad that so many of you log in to our Facebook Live from different parts of the world. Thank you very much for joining us. Pramod, Diya, you're saying I want to work on fear, but I'm sure you will get some kind of pointers through the discussions through these 21 days. Now, this figure 21 days is very interesting because loads of management gurus, life coaches, corporate trainers will say that if we want to deal with a bad habit or form a good habit, we have to work on it for at least 21 consecutive days. Why? Because it takes at least that much time for something to sink into our systems. And that's just how habits are, aren't they? For example, how did we really form a habit? Habits are repeated patterns of action that form a very deep mental imprint, and that mental imprint makes us do the same thing again. To give you an example, somebody who started smoking wasn't a chain smoker on the first day. Started smoking a cigarette, for example, just to try it out, just because friends wanted him or her to do it. And once a person starts smoking for the first time, it leaves a mental imprint, let's say of pleasure. And that mental imprint of pleasure makes the person do it again. And when you do it again, there is a mental imprint. And that mental imprint makes a person do it again. And that action leaves a deeper mental imprint. And that makes a person do it again. And thus, as we repeat that action over and over again, because the deep mental imprint that's formed on our minds, that's what we call a habit. In Sanskrit, that's called sanskar. This sanskar, or this mental imprint that impels us to do something over and over again, that loop is what we call as the conditioning. We've all become conditioned to do something in a certain way. And therefore, if we want to undo it, we will also have to repeatedly keep undoing it so that the mental imprint or the sanskar changes. Isn't it therefore inevitable that we would at least need a minimum 21 days to even think of changing that mental imprint? I'm not even saying it'll change in 21 days, but wouldn't we need to give at least that much time and more to change that mental imprint or that sanskar that has happened over such a long period of time? So if that's called conditioning, this is called unconditioning. In fact, to form a negative habit doesn't take that long. But to unform or to uncondition from it does take a while. I always say, habits are like soft, cozy beds. They're very easy to get into, but very difficult to get out of. If you've ever been sleeping in a soft, cozy bed in the winter season, covering yourself with a blanket, a duvet, a quilt. You know it's so easy to get into, but God, it's so difficult to get out of. Yes, we've been conditioning ourselves for too long. We need certain amount of time to uncondition ourselves as well. So stick it out. Persist. Be patient. Just be with us for 21 minimum days to look at how to deal with it. Here's the reflection that I want to offer to all of you for today until we meet tomorrow morning again at 8 o'clock. One of my friends, he wanted to get into a little bit of bodybuilding, and he didn't have kind of a carved body or anything. He was just like a regular person, and he wanted to get into having a very carved, ripped look. So he went to the gym one day, registered himself, and decided to first work on his shoulders. The very first day he hit the gym, he picked up a heavy barbell, a huge heavy barbell, and tried lifting it. God, disastrous. Disastrous. It was dangerous for him for the simple reason that his shoulders didn't have the sufficient strength to lift this barbell. For sure, he would damage his shoulders, some of his ligaments, some of probably the bones would end up in a fracture. Such a heavy barbell. Not only was it disastrous and dangerous, but I think it was also very detrimental and discouraging. Why? Because he also lost the confidence that he can do it. What if he would have gone to the gym and started with a tiny dumbbell shoulder press instead of a barbell shoulder press? Just take small dumbbells which are not so heavy, which are comfortably within the limits of his capacity to do it, and start doing a shoulder press with a tiny dumbbell. And as his shoulders get used to it, as he develops certain tangible strength in the shoulders, make a small increment in the weight. If he just increases the weight a little bit more in terms of the dumbbells, a little heavier dumbbells, and then starts working on it for a couple of days or weeks, his shoulders get used to it, they build more strength, then increase more weight, and if he keeps making small micro increments in the weights of the dumbbells, within a couple of months, I think, he would probably be able to lift that heavy barbell as well. I very firmly and strongly believe in this principle of micro changes for a macro transformation, micro increments for a macro transformation.